think you are very punctual on time now. we have
No,
to
I just
start.
respect your time. I don't want you people to wait for me. So, yeah, it is a mess at home, but I
Yeah,
make it a
okay.
point to, make sure I'm here.
Okay.
Uh,
Good.
yeah.
Just two more minutes, madam.
No,
Two
no,
more
you
minutes.
you please
Yeah.
decide because you know the schedule there and
Yeah.
you know what is happening.
Yeah.
So I'm ready. No
Yeah.
issues. So when are the next sessionals, exams, whatever needs to happen?
Um, no, I think in another 2 months, madam. Two
In
months
two
it will
months.
take.
So now 2 months
2 months.
is lecture time.
Lecture time. Yeah.
So ward rounds, have they started or?
No, because of the COVID one, we are expecting them in the month of November.
Uh-huh.
From November 1st, they are going to join.
Mhm,
And for interns, it's going to join from October 5th itself. And they
mhm.
will be starting with the ward rounds and regular activities.
Okay.
So that's.
So the final exams are
Final exams, I think in the month of June and July only it will come. Madam.
for June and July. Okay. May.
May,
Okay.
April, May, that duration comes.
Okay.
So by June, the schedule is expected to start.
Mhm.
But because of this COVID, maybe 1 month here and there may
Yeah, yeah.
fluctuate this time.
If it happens, we should all be very happy and just move forward.
Yeah, very true, very true.
So in Kaylee, I mean, you go to KC General Hospital, right?
No, we shifted, madam. Shifted to Aster CMI now.
Sorry, what is
Since
this?
Aster CMI Hospital. It's a
Okay.
corporate hospital located in Hebbal area.
Oh, okay, okay. Uh-huh.
Recently, we have changed to that hospital,
I
and it is
see.
a corporate hospital. And
There are some advantages.
there are some advantages. Yeah,
Mm.
that's true. It should start fifth year, especially for fifth year and sixth year. We are
Sixth year.
focusing it. Yeah.
What about the first to the fourth? They don't go.
First, they don't go because it is a basic pharmaceutical sciences.
Okay.
And second to fourth, they will be taken to the hospital once a month just to have a kind of orientation. But majority of the experiment will be done at the level of college only.
Hmm.
So fourth year we have a plan to take them frequently so that
Hmm.
they should not think that hospital is something different environment when they get into the fifth year. So that is what they tentatively we have a plan. Since it is a new hospital also, setting up the department and trying to
Takes time.
acclimatize to the, yeah, it takes some time also.
But most important, getting the rapport of the people, getting
Yeah,
the clinicians to accept new realities.
yeah.
Those
And
are the usual challenges.
usual challenges, yeah, that's right. Since I worked in Krupanidhi, I could able to get some sense of convincing them and getting into their shoes. But at least, in spite of that, it is a challenging one every time.
Always,
Always.
always. Because the hierarchy is too defined
Too different, yeah.
and very rigid. So,
Yeah, very
defined you
true.
can manage, but rigidity is where the problem starts.
Where the problem starts. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that too, this is a corporate hospital.
Yes.
We should see like how best we convince them with respect to credits, which they expect factors. Uh, but they are also positive as on today.
Nice.
Whenever we have approached them,
Sometimes
because
new brooms will sweep well and you have to make use
uh-huh,
of it.
yeah, because our students have already worked there for 4 months.
I
So
see.
with that, students were also quite happy with the orientation they had there. And in these 4 months, we could able to make some kind of understanding what we can do with them along with the system. So that is where bit comfortability is there. So that we should see
Yeah, yeah.
how it goes.
Each day will throw up its own challenges. You have to
Yes,
just take
yes,
it.
yes, yes. Very true,
Yeah.
very true. Yeah, madam. I think you should start.
We can start.
Yes.
Okay, let me just. I was sharing the screen, right? What happened? Why
Yeah,
is
yeah.
my
No, yeah,
screen?
it is coming there. Make it full screen, madam. That's all.
Okay,
It's coming.
okay, fine.
Yeah, it's
Um,
perfect. Yeah.
so, could I have one volunteer
Yeah,
who
yeah,
is
yeah.
happy
Better,
to
better.
speak?
Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
I'm kind of getting into a zone where I don't know if I'm putting them to sleep or they're already asleep.
You will identify, madam. Right away, you will identify.
Yeah, so
Just
that I can, if I have to ask, I can just ask one person rather
correct.
than, make it
Yeah,
embarrassing for everyone.
yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah,
And I think you should just pick up
yeah,
names in random and not worry too much.
yeah. Rini, Rini, Rini is the best person since she works here since very long time. She knows. Rini,
I'll identify, sir.
please, ma. Please. Even you can give their phone number so that all the messages can be sent to that one particular phone number. So that using that phone messages, that person can speak. Even that arrangement will be fine. So everybody will be happy to just send a message to them
To
instead of
them.
yeah,
We
one or
can't
two.
use this as a chat space, is
Yeah,
it? Where they
because
can.
when there was a experience that they'll write something. So that is why usually that is not encouraged, madam.
Mhm,
Otherwise, that is very easiest way of doing it.
mhm. Okay, before Dr. Rini identifies, I just wanted one question, Dr. Mahesh, to be so that I am more familiar. Which year students am I talking to?
So we have put right from second year to 6th years are there,
Second to
but
sixth.
say
Okay.
second to 6th year, and second to fourth are going to be there in majority number. So when compared to 5th year and 6th year,
Sixth year. Okay.
yeah.
And I mean, what is the outcome that you want to see so that, I'm bearing that in mind? Otherwise, it becomes like, they can switch on, put me on mute and do their own things. You can't force the horse. You can only take the horse to the water. But I need to know which horse are we talking about? What water body are we talking about? If I'm taking the horse to the ocean, then the whole idea is lost. It can't drink the salty water.
Yeah.
So why would they want to listen to this?
So like I guess they are trying to expect something from the syllabus, I guess, somewhere, or maybe they want to link something from the syllabus towards where you want to take them. I think the best my suggestion would be that you see this chapter will lead to this, something like that connection. So then they'll become kind of curious, I guess.
Okay. Because
Because whenever we take the class, we will have that focus. Okay, I am taking this particular chapter number 1 and this subtopic, like that. So they're tuned for that, and the expectation, I guess, would be the same. So maybe linking from the basic thing towards your goal would make them to have a kind of interest in the topic.
all right, let us start and see. So it is 3:46 in my watch.
Yeah.
So we're looking at about 50 minutes.
Yes, yeah, roughly about 4:30.
4:30. Okay.
Perfect. No
So
problem.
let's see how much we finish, because if we don't, then some sections will be for the next one.
Yeah, madam. Yeah.
Okay.
One second, madam. One second. Rini, could you able to identify?
Yes, sir. Winnie is ready of
Okay.
fourth farm D.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to unmute her. Like,
Yeah,
she.
yeah. Please unmute her. That would be the best.
Okay,
Please
okay, sir.
unmute her. Yeah. Ask her to, I guess, unmute something like that.
Okay. If I, Dr. Rini, if I can just, you said Winnie, right?
Yes, ma'am.
If you can just, if I can just talk to her for 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes, it'll help me have a rapport rather than just, I mean, in a class, at least you see faces and warm bodies filling the benches. Now here, I'm just staring at a screen. So I just want to reassure myself that I'm just not just staring at a screen. So at least one person, if I'm able to
I'll, I'll,
communicate with.
I'll try. I'm trying, ma'am. I'll just do that.
So maybe the good option would be, while Dr. Rini tries, we don't wait and we get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Now I believe we are going to be meeting twice a week. I don't know if that is good news or bad news for you. We will look at it this way. Just like examination is a necessary evil in life, just like a whole lot of aspects in life where you know that you have to somehow get through it, if you continue with that attitude here, maybe you will not take what it is meant for. Because what I am trying to work towards here as a volunteer, and that is what I would like to state to you very clearly, that this is a voluntary aspect from my side. As a professional, I feel there are certain strengths I have, and I would like to utilize those strengths during a pandemic. So if I'm doing this on a voluntary basis, it is important that you know it is on a voluntary basis, first thing. Second thing, you need to know, why is this being done? Why is this step being taken where twice a week, every week, for whatever number of weeks we will be connected to? What is the need to go through this? So I think in one sentence, what I can say is, what you will need in the real world is what you're preparing yourself for. And in this presentation, that is one aspect that I am going to touch upon, to show that when it comes to the marketability, India is lagging far, far behind. We may have 72% literacy. We may have a whole lot of us having a degree and coming out. We may have the so-called certificates, but the certificate does not guarantee the fact that you have been able to convert information to knowledge and that knowledge into wisdom. That conversion is what we are looking at. So if you think you have to learn only to get that 50 out of 100 in your exams, well, you have to go on with that attitude. There's nothing that anyone can do if that is where you have headed. But if you think you need to be better prepared to go out into the real world and then take on the opportunities that come your way, then you'll have to think outside the box. So the first point here is thinking outside the box. So today's topic is about pandemic preparedness, contextualizing current health system strengthening. Now, health system strengthening is something that I will be touching upon quite a lot in whatever I'll be taking forward. The reason is that is one of the key aspects that is being looked at around the world. Whether you look at WHO projects, you look at World Bank projects, you look at any of these donor projects, they are talking about what are you doing to strengthen the health system. So that is the reason I thought we will first get started with that particular aspect and then touch upon, as the young people of this country, what else do you need to know specifically for this particular pandemic. Now, when it comes to the health system framework, the famous one is always the WHO health system framework. So in the WHO health system framework, it talks about 6 particular health system blocks or health system building blocks. So the first one is about service delivery. So when you look at service delivery in a country like India, I wish it was an interactive session where you have the ability to tell me, what do you think about service delivery in India? How good are we in the public sector? But I would like you to ask those questions in your own mind. Are we able to deliver good service in the public sector health system? The second one is about the health workforce. When you look at the health workforce and you look at the current SDG document of, so Sagar M says raised hand. Does Sagar M want to ask anything? Or was it an accidental touch of a button? I don't want to ignore and carry on. Sagar, it's acknowledged. If it is really a question you want to ask or something that you really have to ask now, please find a way to get hold of Dr. Rini and get her to unmute you. But I'll carry on from here. So when you look at the health workforce in India, what we have to remember is there are just 39 of midwives, nurses, and doctors put together. And when you look at that 38, 39 people that you have for every 10,000 population, majority of those will be the midwives. The majority are not going to be the physicians, which means we have a small percentage of physicians, a large percentage of nurses, and an even larger percentage of the midwives. And put together, they are constituting that 38 for every 10,000 population. And that is definitely not sufficient. So our health workforce is not sufficient in the normal circumstances. Forget a pandemic. The information that you need in the system. When you look at the information that you need in the system, it can range from anything. It can be the medicines information that you provide. It can be the information with respect to what are the number of vacancies in the system. So everything is information and everything is crucial. So all of that come together. The next one is the medicinal products, vaccines, and the technologies. In this case, when we are dealing with corona, we have to bear in mind that we are using off-label uses of medicines. We are using repurposed medicines. We are using comfortable cocktails such as the hydroxychloroquine and along with the Tamiflu and azithromycin. Now that is such a dangerous concoction. The reason is azithromycin belongs to the watch category of antibiotics. The more we use it, the more resistance is going to be the problem. So we are not paying attention to any of this information when we are repurposing medicines for treating the corona. And this is exactly where we need to start understanding how ill prepared we are for this pandemic in our healthcare system. The next one is the financing. When you look at the financing part of it, you have to bear in mind that India is always, especially when you look at the BRICS countries, the Brazil, Russia, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Amongst these countries, India is spending the least amount in the public sector for health financing. So with that least amount of money that is spent, we want to be able to address a pandemic. Now that is completely questionable. How are we going to even manage this on a sustainable basis? And at the moment, for the last 6 to 8 months, we have been running a sprint for a marathon. It's a long way to go. We have another 1.5 years before we can even look at what are the possible ways out of this. And then we are trying to do everything we can with whatever little we have. And that is also one of the reasons why it is not sustainable. And last, it's about the leadership. Now, when you look at the leadership and the governance, it's about at every level. It's not just about a national level where you look at, okay, Ayushman Bharat is taking the leadership for making health insurance possible to the people. It's not that level of leadership alone. It's leadership right up to the fag end, where the ASHA worker who does the house-to-house surveys also needs to have her own kind of leadership. Now, what do we do? If we have all of these blocks in place, what are the things we are going to be working towards? So those are the overall goals or the outcomes. So the overall goals or outcomes are the improved health. And when you look at the improved health, equity is one of the things that you want to look at. So equality and equity are very different things, and I would like you to look up the difference between the two. be curious to understand what is the difference between equality and equity. And responsiveness, how responsive a health system is. Then it is a social and financial risk protection. And most important, improved efficiency. So with all of these, how do we get from point A, which is the system building blocks, to point B, which is the outcomes? So we're looking at access, coverage, quality, safety. Now, whether they're looking at safety of medicine, whether they're looking at safety of patients, safety of healthcare professionals, all of that comes into the play. So when we look at PPEs, that is safety of the healthcare professionals and also the safety of the patients. So that's what we have to bear in mind. Now, one of the biggest, criticism about this particular WHO health system framework is that it does not bring in the people in its framework. And therefore, a lot of people have come about just adding one or two things and then calling it their own health system strengthening framework. So the one on the right talks about human resources. So instead of human resources, what the WHO had was health workforce. Then it talks about service delivery again. Then it has the medicines and technology. It has governance. It has information. It has financing. But what it has clearly shown there is people in the center. So of late, what is happening is every other person is using the WHO framework, adding one or two things and then calling it their framework. And in this particular one, it's a people-centered framework. But my argument would be, if WHO has come up with those blocks, but only thing that they didn't do is they didn't put the so-called people in the center, then we are being myopic, because the entire thing is working for the sake of the people. If people have been removed, then you don't need a building block, you don't need a health system framework. So just because we don't put people as words there, it does not mean it is not for people, because we're not doing all this for any other species or for aliens on this planet. So that is one thing that I wanted to show you. So this is about the health system strengthening. And how would, so now I would like to ask Vinny, in whatever you're learning and studying at the moment, where do you think the health system framework makes most sense? Vinny, are you still there? Have you been unmuted?
I think or Reshmi can answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Rashmi.
Hello, ma'am.
Do you feel like the scapegoat here?
Sort of.
Sort of. I'm happy you're being at least sort of truthful. Be completely truthful, Rashmi. Just say yes, ma'am. Right. Because truth has to be first, put right in the center. Just like people put people in the center of that framework and then called it people-centered framework. So you are the scapegoat, right? Where does this framework make sense in what you study?
It's related to medicinal products, ma'am, and patient information.
Patient information, medicinal products, okay. Where else, what other links can you draw? How will this be useful for you to write your exam?
Well, it would help us to know the current situation.
Yeah, you understand, but we are now talking of exams because you only read for marks, right? So help me help you. That is all I'm asking. I'm not asking to either question you, make you feel miserable, or to show my authority. It is for none of those reasons. All I'm asking for is, if you tell me where this fits in, then I will know how to navigate this so that everybody starts seeing, oh, okay, this extra thing does fit into our learning and our exams. So where do you think this fits in?
Uh, maybe newer drugs and
Why
newer
would you
techniques.
think of newer drugs?
I'm not, like, it would be helpful if we learn, like, if we are more oriented towards drugs and patient counseling part. So,
Okay.
because it's our main, where we work is under patient counseling, so it would be helpful for us.
Okay. All right. So for now, I'll keep those words in my head and then take it forward. Thanks, Rashmi. So where I think this fits in for you is not just to understand where are we with this pandemic, but it also helps you understand that don't limit yourself either to medicines or to information or to the patient. Look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is you are able to provide better services to the patient and provide better pharmaceutical care. You are able to provide better service to the doctors and to the nurses, where you're able to tell them, all right, to the nurses, whether two particular medicines can't be administered together, or calculation of the doses. So you could be looking at how do you help the nurses there. You could look at possibly making sure that the doctors also understand certain things because you have access to the latest information, knowing very well that that particular skill that the doctors have picked up is not because they studied more pharmacology than you did. They have picked up that skill and confidence because they are working day in and day out and seeing the effects of the medicines that they prescribe. It is definitely not because they have more pharmacology lessons than you have. So you are able to contribute to that particular aspect much better. You are able to contribute to the leadership aspect much better, because pharmacists have always been playing second fiddle to everybody else. And I'm not saying that that is necessarily bad or good. What I'm saying is we have not made a place for ourselves either in the minds of the society, in the minds of the patients, or in the minds of the doctors. So this is one specific area. If you start seeing what is the health system framework, you will see, all right, leadership is something I need to focus on. And if you look at the financing side of it, this is where certain things like ABC analysis and VED analysis that you can do for the hospital and improve your participation in the medicines and therapeutics committee. Have you heard of ABC analysis and VED analysis? Rashmi? Sorry, Dr. Mahesh, you're muted, so I can't hear you.
Yeah, they would have heard in second year PharmD, community pharmacy,
Okay.
this analysis part, and also in fourth year in hospital pharmacy. Yeah, go ahead.
In hospital pharmacy. Okay. So ABC analysis happens. But in a hospital setting, do they actually do it and help?
No, they don't do it, but they are supposed to. They're
Okay.
supposed to do with pharmacists working in the hospital, especially pharmacy section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe, now that you've gone into a new hospital, we can start looking at how the students who are now being trained, when they get into the fifth year, as part of their research projects, they could start doing the ABC analysis, VED analysis, and working with the pharmacists and later on with the doctors to show how do you make this happen. Because at the end of it, it's all about improving health. It's about improving efficiency. It's about being responsive to the system. And most important, the social and financial risk protection, because whatever money is there, if it is being utilized better, then that is how the quality, safety, access, and coverage is taken care of. So this is about the health system strengthening. Now, in a pandemic, what are the things that needs to happen? The things that need to happen in a pandemic are strategic planning. You have to start with planning, and it has to go to the operational planning, because strategic planning will look at what strategies have to be used. In an operational planning, you look at When you go from a national level all the way to the primary healthcare level, what are the steps that need to be taken at every level? Who reports to whom? What are the things that need to be reported? What kind of checklist should we be looking at? So that is the operational planning. Then comes what are the exercises and the reviews. So here you have to look at what kind of reviews need to take place. You know, is it review related to how many, for example, how many ASHA workers are available, how many of them can cover which areas for the house survey, reviews with respect to how many patients have been quarantined, what are the medications that are being prescribed to those patients, how are the patients being reviewed on a daily basis, either by the ASHA worker or the health inspector or whoever has been put in charge. That is the review. And then comes the implementation. So from the operational planning and understanding what needs to be reviewed, we go into the implementation. While you implement, you have to always evaluate what has happened, because when you implement, there will be so many pitfalls. There will be so many gaps in the system. So if you don't evaluate, you don't understand the gaps and how do you address those gaps, because from the evaluation comes back to the strategic planning, which is how do we now go back and plan better? How do we make sure that whatever problems we faced or whatever did not work starts working once again? So those are some of the pandemic preparedness planning cycle. Now this particular one is for the influenza checklist that WHO has prepared. So here at the bottom I've given you the web link for that. So what happens here is you have the different sections. There are 7 sections that need to be worked through. And what WHO has also done is it has told what are the essential ones that should be done, what are the desirable ones that would be nice as an add-on, because essential means it has to definitely be in place. So the first section is about preparing for an emergency. So when it is an emergency, how do you start preparing? Getting started, communication and control. Then you look at the risk assessment, the communication that needs to happen, the legal and the ethical issues. Now here I thought I'll spend a little bit of time. What are the legal and the ethical issues? Please remember that in a normal situation, we go with normative framework. What is a normative framework? As a democracy, I should not have any travel restrictions. I should be able to move around freely. I should be able to move in and out of my house freely. But in a pandemic, there are travel restrictions. You can't go from one place to another because you don't want the disease to be spreading. There are restrictions where quarantine comes into the play. If a person is sick or a person's family members are sick, then it means that during that quarantine, you don't want to expose other people to the condition. And therefore, it starts to infringe on everybody's rights. Individual rights have to be compromised for the sake of the public health. And that is why you're looking at the legal part of it. What kind of, from a legal framework, what kind of actions should be taken so that there is travel restriction? There is closure of educational institutions, because in the normal circumstances, you would not close an educational institution because right to education is a right. Every child has a right for education. You can't close institutions. Then there's the prohibition of mass gathering. People can't gather. Even if it is for a funeral, they can't gather. Even if it is for a wedding, they can't gather. You can't have big groups of people. So that's what happens during a pandemic. Religious activities, because in a democracy, the freedom of practicing one's own religion and doing whatever is part of that religious activity has always been part of it. But now it can't happen. And then there are the ethical issues. So scarce resources. Can Rashmi unmute and tell me at the moment, I mean, since the time the COVID issues started, can you think of some of the resources that we did not have enough of and we struggled? Rashmi, are you still there?
Dear students, please be alert. Who are all nominated, please be alert. So the time will not be wasted.
Okay. So
Rashmi,
she has put her hand up. She has raised her hand, but I don't know. Maybe she's not able to unmute herself or.
unmute. Just see the unmuting or connecting problem.
Okay, let's not struggle if technology is not
sure.
working. So if you look at the ethical issues, when we started off, we did not have sufficient PPEs for the healthcare professionals. And one of the things that we did at that point was the hoarding started to happen. And that is when the N95 masks were being used by people who were driving their scooters and cars on the street. And the healthcare professionals did not have N95 masks. So we had to go from that level where we were dependent on China for everything to start depending on ourselves and making things that we need ourselves. And then we reached a stage where we were able to export all the way even to countries like USA, UK. They got quite a lot of our PPEs that were exported. So we had to go through that scarce resource at that point. And now if you take a look at what is it that we are not having sufficiently, one of the things that we don't have now is the medicinal oxygen. So there is a severe shortage of oxygen, and therefore all the legal aspects has to chip in. Now it is being chipped in so that there is more production of that medicinal oxygen, and therefore it is reaching the patients in the hospitals. So you have to remember that these are some of the things that goes on. And then comes the surveillance, because surveillance is extremely important in a pandemic. So if we look at how did we manage to do it now, it is because of the ASHA workers. Are you aware of who are the ASHA workers? Anybody can? Okay, Rashmi, I see that you have been able to unmute yourself. Are you aware of ASHA workers? Who are they?
Yes, ma'am. These are the people who usually come to house by house and they deliver medicines and check for COVID testers. They do COVID testers and all.
Okay. So, okay, let's push it a little further, because anyway, you are the scapegoat for today. When they do the COVID test, what are the two types of COVID tests that are possible?
It's polymerase chain reaction is one of it.
Okay.
And
what is the other one?
Other one, I'm not sure, ma'am.
Okay. So the ASHA worker, will she be able to do the PCR testing, or is she doing the rapid antigen testing?
I think it's the rapid antigen testing.
The name is a giveaway, because it's something where you just need to take a drop of blood and do the rapid antigen testing. Now, which is the most reliable one? Is it the rapid antigen testing, or is it the PCR?
PCR is reliable, ma'am.
It's definitely more reliable. See, nothing in life is a definite yes and no. It's PCR is more reliable when compared to rapid antigen testing. But with the PCR, are false positive results possible?
Yes, ma'am.
So those are the things we need to remember. And one of the ways to help us remember is what happened in the Bachchan family. Do you remember what happened with them and the testing?
Oh, no, ma'am.
I thought Amitabh Bachchan, we all know, we follow, at least it's in our faces in the media and in the newspaper. So when Amitabh and Abhishek tested positive and they went to the hospital, Aishwarya and Aradhya didn't test positive. They tested negative. And then within a few days, they tested positive again. Okay. So these are good examples to show that you can't just completely blindly believe in these tests, because false positive is a possibility. So this is something that you have to start reading up as pharmacy professionals, where you realize that when people come and complain by telling, oh, I gave that test, I was negative, and then I took this test and I was positive. You have to bear in mind that a lot of these things are also because of operator variability. What is operator variability? When people are taking that oropharyngeal swab, and when that is happening, when the patient retracts or the person retracts and the swab is not able to collect what it is supposed to collect, then obviously the person will be carrying, but there'll be a false negative test, right? So you have to start understanding more about what are the different things that can go wrong, because of which we start blaming the test or the lab. But a whole lot of things can happen because the patient was not cooperative, the patient did not allow the sample to be taken the right way, the operator, the person who's taking the swab, did not do it the right way. So all of these things can go wrong. And then comes definitely the technical side of things, the instruments and how they are being used and how they are being maintained, how they are calibrated, all of that also comes in. So remember that all of these things are possible. Right. Now, in the next 10 minutes, I will just cover a few quick things, and then the rest of it is for the next session. Because one thing you have to bear in mind is in India right now, we are in one of the most fortunate positions. If at all a pandemic has come to us, it has come to us when we are much better off. And I'll tell you how so. First thing is we are in what is called as the demographic dividend. So in a demographic dividend, what happens is, if you look at the graph here, where India is second from the bottom, Bangladesh is at the bottom, and India is the second one from the bottom. For the next 37 years, up to the year 2055, we have a huge advantage because the median year for India is just 26.7 years, because the number of people who are aged above 65 are very less. The number of people who are aged below 15 years are very less. But the number of people between the ages of 15 and 65, which is considered the most productive years of a person's life, that is the highest number we have in this country. So depending on where you pick up the stats from, some say it is from 2018, others say it's from 2020. Stats, you have to always take it with a pinch of salt. It depends on so many other factors that we don't completely understand. And that's a reason it is easy to project things the way we want it. But either way, we have that advantage. We have the largest youth population in the planet at this moment. So if at all we are not seeing so many deaths in our country, possibly that is one of the simple reasons. Even if the youth who are not supposed to be coming down to the same level that older people come down with for COVID, the fatality is not high in our country. We did not struggle the way Italy struggled. We did not struggle the way possibly Brazil struggled. We have definitely not struggled the way USA struggled. So in spite of not having a strong healthcare system, if we have been spared of a whole lot of these struggles, but just the numbers keep going, and sometimes we lose a track of how many zeros are there in the number of new patients every day. It just means that, we are not counting our blessings. That's all I can say. We have a huge youth population. And the other thing that I wanted to raise here is the dependency ratio of the population. What is the dependency ratio? When you have when you have a big chunk of the population under 15 years of age, they are the dependents. When you have a big part of the population above the age of 65, they would have retired, and therefore they become the dependents to some extent, because just because they're retired, it doesn't mean they're completely dependent. A lot of people are in jobs where they get pensions, or they have saved enough, or they can work as consultants. So it doesn't always mean they're dependent, but just that they're not as productive in terms of economic aspects. So that is the huge advantage that we have in India at the moment. We are going through that phase of demographic dividend in a large economy. So now that we have looked at our blessing, let's look at what is our problem. And this is what I told you right at the beginning when I started. I said that India is having a huge crisis when it comes to the skill shortages. We may have people who have a degree. We may have people who have that piece of paper that says, okay, they have finished this particular course. But when you study a course where you study for the marks, you always have to question yourself. When you go to a doctor, and if you are going for one specific kind of, let us say, surgery, and that particular surgery was not given enough marks, and that doctor thought, that is not for 20 marks, so why should I learn that? Let me learn something else for better marks. Would you like such a doctor to be operating on you? Definitely not. So I think at some point you need to be a little bit more, not just ethical, because you need to know what you are doing with your patients, but you also need to be having a different level of maturity where exams and marks are not the defining moments of your life. They're just necessary evils of life, because there has to be a system that kind of measures and weighs what you understand and what you know, and therefore certifies you. But after you're certified, the question is, are you able to have the skills to be marketable, to be able to be employed, to get that employment? And if you look at the graph there, we are pathetically bad at it. We are 64% there, where we have a skills shortage as a percentage of firms with 10 or more employees in selected countries. There's a severe shortage of skills. We don't have the competency to do the job. We have secured a degree, but we have not understood how to use that information in order to make things happen. On the other hand, our purchasing power parity, we stand third in the world. So if you look at the CIA of all the places, it shows you that India stands third in the world. But at the same time, while we were working towards whatever dream trillions of economy we wanted to generate, what has now gone wrong with COVID is our economy has shrunk very badly. What was expected was 18.3% drop, but what has happened is 23.9% drop. So the more this kind of economy shrinks, the more chaos we're going to have in every part. If construction has stopped, if hotels and transportations have stopped, if manufacturing is having a minus 39.3%, what happens is more and more number of people who are dependent on that daily wages, who are dependent on that monthly salary, don't have the disposable money in order to keep the system functional. And once that happens, the social chaos that is possible in our countries is something we should not underestimate. If we just carry on like this for another 18 months, not everybody has sufficient savings to sit at home and then do what they believe in doing, because there are no opportunities available. So we all have to bear in mind that this is not going to end very easily or very quickly. So we better gear up ourselves for what needs to happen. So one thing that needs to happen for a pandemic preparedness is for us to be aware of whatever we need to know. So what do we need to know in case of present and future? There is a WHO course. Now this course the duration is approximately 3 hours, and it has 4 different modules, and the course is a open access course. So you're not paying any money to do this, and then you get a certificate. So I hope that at least catches your attention, because you are studying to get your certificates. So adding this certificate to your PharmD makes a lot of sense. The reason is you now are doing the WHO course, which is about emerging respiratory viruses, including COVID-19. What are the methods for detection, prevention, response, and control? So I strongly urge you to at least go and see the website, even if you don't immediately do the course, and then look at, when you will find your 3 hours to sit down and learn it. As a pandemic preparedness, what can we do at our level if we are not working in the public sector, if we are not associated in a primary healthcare center or in a tertiary health center? What is it that we can do? The one thing we can definitely do is understand better, understand more about the disease, so that first and foremost, we prevent it for ourselves. Secondly, it is for our family members. Thirdly, it is for our neighbors and our communities that we are in. And fourthly, it just keeps enlarging depending on at what level you want to take it. So one of the, two things that I have shown here are, one is a toolkit for people 15 to 21 years. It's from the CDC in the US. The second one is the resources for the adolescents and the youth, which is from um, uh, the department, the United Nations department that speaks to adolescents and the youth. Something we also have to bear in mind during this pandemic is the infodemic. What is infodemic? There's a lot of misinformation. And where does this misinformation come from? Definitely the social media. So if we don't understand, one second. If we don't understand the difference between the right knowledge and what is fake news, if we don't understand what is right humor and make fun of things that should not be made fun of, and we just forward every video that comes to us, that is not winning, that is not going to win this battle. So you have to have some kind of a vested leadership, a visionary leadership, or a vigilant leadership, where you're able to say that if this is not of any help to anyone else, I should not be using the social media to forward anything that comes about COVID to everybody else that is on my list. So that's something that you have to bear in mind. It is about policing the fake news and sharing correct information to save the lives. Now, I'll give you examples of how this is being done by young people like you. It is not about governments only. So one of the other places where you can go and look up for what do you need to know, how are other countries dealing with this, how are the youth in other countries dealing with this, it is the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. So they give you several examples, how the scouts in different countries are working towards this, how the youth choir in South Africa used music and dance to dismantle myths about the coronavirus. So it's all about what is happening with respect to how communities are dealing with this. For example, there's a disproportionate demand on the healthcare workers. If they have to work 8-hour and 12-hour shifts, then who is going to look after their young and old in the houses while they are serving us at a high risk to themselves and their families? And that is something we should not for 1 second forget. Who are they dying for is something we need to ask ourselves. We are not prepared to wear a mask all the time. We want to make it look like we are so invisible to the virus. We want to make it look like the virus will not come only to us. You know, others will somehow get it, but we will somehow not get it. And then who is paying the price? It's all the essential service providers. It's the petrol pump attendant. It is the person who comes to your house to deliver your newspaper. So, and it goes all the way up to the doctor who treats you. Why should the doctor and their family suffer just because we want to be irresponsible? I think that is completely on us and not up to the system. We have no one to blame and nowhere to go if we start creating a situation where our healthcare professionals are either coming down with the disease or they are dying because of it. And that's not on. So take a look at this particular web link. So everything that I give you, there's always a web link to show you where you can go and access more information. Now, young people like you, what are they doing? Globally, you have this U report global, and then you have this U report in India. If you take a look at the graph here, it is people between the ages of 20 and 24 that forms the highest one, which is the 40%. Are you able to see my cursor? I don't know if anyone can answer that question. So if you look at what is the age group of the people who are participating in this in India, the biggest chunk belongs to the 20 to the 24 years old group. So take a look at what is this, because this also looks into the rumor tracking, so that we make sure that rumors don't reach people. We want the right information to reach the people. And also United Nations turned 75 years. So it's a UN Reimagining Our Future survey. It's about asking the young people, how do they see their future? What do they want in their future? So that is what we have here. So do show some interest to go to this web link, which is the https ureport.in. So for today, my last slide will be on let us please be cognizant of the mental strain during a pandemic, because when there's a pandemic and everybody is indoors, it causes a lot of boredom, causes depression, fear, frustration, feeling of hate, irritation, loneliness, negativity, restlessness, stress, suffocation, sleeplessness. And something that's not here is the claustrophobia that you feel. Because when everybody is indoors and you can't leave the house, then it just causes all of those things. And let's also remember that financial difficulties because of the income and the debt related problems, food shortages at home, and the fear of going hungry, all of this is weighing heavily on the minds of people. We are a massive country, and in a massive country where we are the second largest populated country, and we are the seventh largest country in space in terms of the space that we have. But it doesn't mean that there's a lot of space for everyone. It just means that we are all getting cooped up now. So be aware of the mental strain that people are going through. And it's more than 6 months and there has just been no stepping back from the pandemic. So we really have to be um, uh, very sensitive about what others are going through, and therefore be cautious about what we say or don't say. So 2 documents that I will talk to you about on Tuesday when I see you are the COVID-19 stigma and discrimination strategy, which has come about from the Ministry of Health, and the COVID-19 urban slum strategy, which is in partnership with the WHO. So I'll talk to you about these 2 documents. It will take me a little more time to explain. And now it's already 4:32. So I will stop it at that, and then we'll take it up in the next session. If there are any questions, I'm definitely happy to answer based on what I've talked to you about until this point of time. Dr. Mahesh, have they responded or asked anything?
Yeah, madam. Let us say, Winnie, Rini, just coordinate with Winnie.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Is there anything that kind of strikes to you as important from what you have listened? We'll just spend a minute. If it don't, then we can end the session. So, Dr. Mahesh, just a curious question. Who has the control for unmuting people?
Our boss.
Your boss, okay. So how does Dr. Rini manage?
Dr. Rini, usually because we have given the numbers of the particular student to other students, possibly I guess the messages will come to her, the Winnie. So Winnie is going to talk to you. That is how it is. Something like that. We
Okay.
have done the
So
arrangement.
maybe next time before I start, that can happen. Whatever they have.
Wait, madam. Let us see.
No, I don't mind waiting. Please, don't ever feel that I am impatient. I don't want it embarrassing either for the students or for
Yes,
you.
yes.
So that's the reason I always step back quickly.
Correct. No, sitting idle without, I understand the pain. Winnie, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Hi, ma'am. Good evening,
Hi.
ma'am.
Good evening, Winnie. Good to hear you.
Ma'am, I had certain network problems at the beginning, so I couldn't unmute my mic.
No issues.
Ma'am, could you please tell me how to deal with the mental strain that people are facing during a pandemic?
I don't see, Vinny, we have to remember one thing, if we want to talk about counseling or we want to talk about therapy sessions, you and I are not trained in that area, right? So all that I'm saying is we may not have all the tools to deal with it. But, okay, Vinny, before I answer any further, are you talking about for oneself or for others to deal with?
Ma'am, for others, ma'am.
For others. So for others, the one thing that we have to definitely do is, this makes me think, I'm sure we have counseling sessions that takes place from the government sector. So directing them towards that. In our country, going for a counseling therapy is seen as either you have become mad or you're incapable of sorting your problems. So we also have to start relaxing our own rules for that. But at the end of the day, you and I study pharmacy. So we don't have the tools and techniques to say how to deal with mental strain. But as common humans who understand what is mental strain and who understand that during a pandemic when people don't have a safety net, when I say safety net, if they don't have enough savings to get through from one month to the other, then obviously their stress levels are completely different. So just being kind, having a few kind words is all they need. They don't need anything else at the moment to start with. If the problem has gone to a level where it is a depression, you and I don't have the tools and techniques to handle them. So they have to be seen by people who are trained to do that. So that would be my first response to it. In your mind, what were you thinking? How do you think we should be doing this? Are we trained for this? We don't understand psychology. We don't understand neurosciences. So we definitely should not be in this, attempting these things.
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah, so directing them to people who are trained for that is one way of doing it. And being kind to people is something we can all do. So those two would be my first response. Anything else, Winnie?
Ma'am, one more question.
Yes.
Ma'am, can you tell us about any of the recent vaccine developments for this COVID?
The update on the vaccine aspects? Is
Yes,
that what
ma'am.
you're talking about? I think that's a whole new session on its own.
Yes.
And thank you for giving me the topic for next time. When I say next time, when I finish this, that can be the next one to say, where do we find all the information that we want with respect to the vaccines? So I will take that up. I will put the presentation together and then I will tell you the exact answer. I don't think we can start at 4:35 to start answering about what all do we need to know about the vaccines. So that will be my next topic. Okay, anything else that you have?
No, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Winnie,
Thanks, Winnie.
for-
That was really good because what you do is when you are asking me those questions, it makes me think of what would be important for you people, not just me coming up with those topics. It'll have some kind of a ownership where you also discuss and tell me what would be nice for you to know. And sometimes I may not know it. So then if I know someone who does that work, I can always find that person to come and give a talk for us. So please don't hesitate to ask me questions because if I don't know the answer, I will go look it up. Or if I don't know that at all, then I'll find somebody who can come and talk to us about it. All right. Okay, excellent. So have a good evening and see you all on Tuesday then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you
very
so much. Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye.
And thanks all these participants for your enthusiasm today. At least you could able to open the mouth and ask interesting questions. And she's very happy and kind enough to take itself as a signal to, create a topic to talk more on that. I wish that from next time onwards, we will make it more streamlined where one person like Winnie or two is going to volunteer. You will give their number and put messages as much as you want it, and madam will be very happy to answer very important things. And sometimes she's open enough to say that she'll get back to you if she is not very clear about the concepts, because in scientific committee all the information cannot be accurate, so that she makes some kind of comments. So she is careful enough to take it very, very carefully to convey the right message. That is very important. Thank you, students, and thanks, madam, again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rini, for coordinating.
Have a good day. Thanks. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye.